everyone, I'm Liz and welcome to the Milk and Honey YouTube channel. In today's video, I'll be walking you through how to make this adorable bowl cozy. I love to use mine for heating up leftover soup or chili. I also made a mini version and they perfectly fit ice cream bowls so your hands can stay nice and warm. These are super popular at markets and my friends and family have asked me to make them some. So if you'd like to make one of your own, keep watching. I'll walk you through the whole project, including all the materials you'll need. I'll have it all listed in the description. But if you prefer to follow along with a written copy, you can pick one up on my Etsy, which will be linked in the description. It will have the cutting for both sizes and give some more details on bulk sewing this project. So let's dive in. Now, before we go over the materials, I do want to include a disclaimer that if you plan to use this in the microwave, all the materials that you use have to be 100% cotton. Typically, I'm an advocate to use what you have, but materials other than cotton have the potential to catch on fire. So this would include polyester or polycotton. These are synthetic fabrics, which could have plastics in them, which can melt or burn. It's also important to note that even if you do use all 100% cotton materials, you cannot microwave an empty bowl. So as long as you have food, something inside the bowl, you will be fine. If you don't, the cotton can heat the bowl up too quick, and it can also result in the bowl cracking or catching on fire, which we do not want. So if you do plan on gifting these, please make sure you let your recipient know so they don't ruin all your hard work. All right, let's dive into the materials. To make one regular size bowl, you will need 2 squares that measure 10 inches by 10 inches. I opted to pick 2 different prints so that it's reversible, but you could definitely pick the same prints. And these are both 100% quilting cotton. You will also need 2 pieces of 100% cotton batting measuring 9 inches by 9 inches. Some shops will sell a product from Pellon that's called Wrap and Zap, which is specially designed for being used in the microwave, and I'll link it in the description if you'd like to check it out. But if your local store doesn't carry it, then 100% batting is perfectly fine. Finally, you will need a spool of 100% cotton thread. This is a spool of Gutermann thread. Typically I use Glide for all my projects, but I don't have any at the moment. So I picked up a spool of cotton thread at my local store as well. And if you aren't too sure if it's cotton or not, if you're getting Gutermann thread, their cases or their shells here are different colors for the different materials it's made out of. So for the polyester one, you can see it's this cream color. And for the cotton thread, it is this orangey, yellow, kind of mustardy color. So that's a quick way for you to tell these apart. Now that we have all our materials, we can start our first step. We're going to take one of our 10-inch squares of fabric and place the 9-inch square of batting to face the wrong side of the fabric like this. Then we're going to take our ruler and our marking pen, and we're going to draw a giant X from corner to corner on our fabric, making sure it's on the batting side, the wrong side. And I'm just going to, which way? This way. Use my 45-degree line because I am a little bit of a perfectionist with this. And you're going to want to make sure that the line that you draw extends past the batting and onto the fabric. Just like this. And then we'll rotate it. Do that again on this side. So you're going to repeat this step on the other piece of fabric and batting. Then you're going to take it to your machine and you're going to sew along these 2 lines. You can use a 2 or 2.5 inch stitch length. I'll be using a 2.5 stitch length, and just make sure again that you're going to sew past the edge of the batting on all 4 corners. Alright, so now that both of our pieces have been quilted, we're going to put one to the side and we're going to add our darts. So we're going to take this one piece here and we're going to fold it in half so that the right sides of the fabric are facing each other. And we're going to line up the edges so everything meets just like that. And if you'd like, you can just use a pin to hold it in place while we do our markings. So you're going to take your marking pen and your ruler, and the markings we're going to make are going to be on the fold here. So we're going to make a marking that is 1 inch up from the fold on the raw edge, and one that is 2 inches in on the fold. So these measurements will be from the fabric and not from the batting. So we'll line our ruler up so that we're 1 inch up, and we'll put a little mark here, and 2 inches in. So we'll put another mark here, and then we're going to connect these two markings on an angle, just like this. And this is going to be our sew line. So we're going to repeat this on the other side. Perfect. So now we're going to take this to our machine, and we're going to sew across these two markings that we made. And you're going to use I'd say use a 1.8 or a 2 stitch length, and make sure that you are back stitching at the start and the end. After it's sewn, it should look something like this. So we're going to take our scissors or our rotary cutter, and we're going to trim down the seam allowance for these darts to be 1/4 of an inch. So this is an approximation. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure that you're not getting too close to this seam or cutting it. All right, so now we need to make our darts on the opposite corners. So to do that, we're just going to take out our pin, and we're going to fold it in the opposite direction. So we're going to open it up, and then we're going to rotate and fold it together so these darts that we just made are matching each other, and all these raw edges are aligned. So I'm going to put one pin here and line this all up. Put another one here. And just like before, we're going to take our ruler and our marking pen, making sure everything is nice and flat. We're going to mark our 1 inch and 2 inch marking and attach it. And on the other side. So again, we'll take this to our machine, and we're going to sew along the markings that we made, and we're going to repeat all these steps again on the other piece of batting. So after you're done making your 4 darts, it should look something like this. And as you can see, I just went in and I trimmed all 4 corners. Now, this is an optional step, but I like to reduce my batting as much as I can, reduce that bulk. So along the seams here, what I like to do is just trim back the batting another 1/8 of an inch. And you gotta be very careful if you decide to do this not to cut the fabric on the other side. But I find when making the sewing the bowl all the way around, it makes it a little bit easier to nest these seams at my later step. So I'm just going to very carefully trim this back. Just like that. There we go. So you can see here that I trimmed the batting back about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to repeat that on all my corners, on my outside and on my inside piece. So our last step before attaching our bowl cozy together will be to iron our darts. So to do that, I like to just iron mine open. So I'll start by doing it with my hand, and I'll just press them with my finger to get them ready for my iron. And then I'm going to iron all 4 of the darts on this piece and on the interior piece. Okay, so now we are ready to attach the bowl exterior and interior pieces. So what we're going to do is flip one of them so that the batting is on the outside and the fabric is on the inside, and the other one, batting on the inside, fabric on the outside. So we're going to take one and we're going to nest it into the other, aligning all of the corners and all of the darts. And I'm just going to take some quilting clips, and I like to start with the seams for the darts, and I'm a little particular, so I match up the seams and then I put a clip, and then I'll match these up. You can even poke them out a little. And then you're also going to add some pins or clips to the edges. And what we're going to do to attach this together is we're going to sew around the perimeter, but we need to turn it inside out. So we're going to pick one of our sides, and I just like to make a marking so I don't get too excited and sew too much. So I'm going to leave an opening that's about 2.5 inches wide. So I'll go from here to here, and just be cautious. The closer that opening is to this point here, the more likely it will be for the seam to come apart. So when you're sewing, you can even do a little back stitch here, then you'll go all the way around and then do another little back stitch here just to make sure it doesn't come apart when you turn it inside out. So now we're ready to take this to our machine, and again, we're going to sew all around the perimeter. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, as I was sewing, I forgot to mention how you want to do this. So when you put this on your machine, when you get to these corners here, once your needle intersects with this line, you stop. You can lift up your presser foot and then pivot the fabric. And the same when you get to these corner seams here. Once your needle's in, you lift your presser foot, pivot the fabric, and that way you will have nice and sharp corners. So now that it's sewn, we're going to do our final trimming before we turn it inside out. So we're just going to go to our corners here and just very carefully snip all the edges. And we don't want to cut any of the seams that we just sewed. We just want to reduce the bulk in the corners for when we turn it inside out. So now that that is done, we're going to find our hole, which is right here. And we're going to turn it out. We're going to do this carefully and take your time. Don't pull too hard because we don't want to rip any of the stitches that we made. And you can use your finger or a blunt object to help you with these corners. Here, let me show you here. So I just like to pinch the corner, and I just like to use my finger to poke it out. And when you're poking, don't push too hard because you don't want it to go through your seams. You don't want to rip your seams open. So just like that. And then the last corner is over here. Perfect. So I am going to, you can see it's coming together. Almost done. Oh, this corner wasn't poked out enough, so let's just go back. And there we go. Now for this hole, we're just going to fold the edges so the raw edges are on the inside of the fabric. And I'll just take a few clips to keep that in place. And if you'd like, you can just give this a quick press just to make sure everything is nice and crisp. And then you're going to sew a top stitch around the edge of the cozy. And I like to use a 2.5 stitch length, and I like to keep it fairly close to the edge. If you can see from my sample here, I'm maybe like 1/8 of an inch away, but if you want to make yours further in, if you're not comfortable sewing that close to the edge, you can definitely do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, whatever you prefer. It's your bowl cozy. So I am going to do my iron and do my top stitch. And after it's all sewn, you are done. You have your very own practical kitchen accessory, this bowl cozy that your hands will definitely thank you for. I love to make sewing content, so if you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. If there's a project you'd like to learn, or if you have any questions on today's project, please let me know in the comments. I hope you liked today's video, and happy sewing, everybody!